Hello, kind and gentle town folk of YouTube. Welcome to Lou's house. And a quick gear review slash build that I'm doing here. Now, I had to sell most of my expensive guitars in the past few months. Divorce and COVID and property taxes are no fun, and sometimes a man's got to do what he's got to do, and I was thankful I had some guitars to sell. Now, I am a Stratocaster guy. I have become, over the years, a Strat is my favorite guitar, bar none. I love Fenders. I love the Strat sound over Gibson overall. A great sounding Strat is just my favorite. They're very versatile. I love the tubular, kind of bell-like tones you can get out of a Strat compared to a Gibson. The longer scale, the single coils, it's just all very good. And I was a Tele player for many years. I had a 94 American 52 reissue Butterscotch Blonde Telecaster with the Blackguard. Fantastic guitar. I played that for so long. And then I got a couple Strats. I got a American Deluxe with the S1 switching, which I ended up throwing some Stevie Ray style Texas Specials in it, and I rewired it completely, and that was an awesome Strat. But I really dig the look of, say, the vintage kind, and my last Strat, which was the last guitar I sold, my favorite guitar ever, my 62 reissue Sunburst Strat 2006. That was a fantastic guitar. So those were both from the American Vintage line. My two favorite, best quality guitars, the 52 reissue Tele, 62 reissue Strat. Now, I had both of those at the same time for quite a few years, and I still lean toward my Tele because I played it for so long, and I liked the feel of the neck better, but I always was like, wow, the Strat does sound better than the Tele. But it took me getting rid of that Tele and then to play the Strat all the time, because I always liked the sound of the Strat the best. I'm like, oh, it's my best sounding guitar. And I ended up putting some custom shop Texas Specials in that 62 reissue also, pretty much from the get-go after I had them in that American Deluxe. And that was pretty sick. I always loved those. Those custom shop Texas Special pickups are great. They sound fantastic. But anyhow, I had to sell that. You know, I sold the Gibson SG, my first Gibson. I had it briefly, and now it's gone, and that's fine. I sold a Guild I had that a buddy of mine really did a great job refretting it for me and doing some other work on it. I sold that. I sold my Telecaster. There was a Mexican made, a really good Telecaster. I don't think I've ever done anything on the channel with it. But there's a quote from Jimi Hendrix, and I have to totally agree. And it's what pushed me over the edge with my Stratocaster trip. And he's like, a Telecaster has two sounds, a good one and a bad one. And after having that 52 reissue, a great sounding, playing Telecaster all those years, and the Strat, you know, the reissue 62, I have to agree with Jimmy that, you know, the Tele just cannot hold its own to a Strat. And I'm a player that really prefers the middle positions, the out of phase, you know, the hum canceling 2 and 4 positions on my Strat. I love the tones you can get. There's something special from combining those and having the reverse wound, reverse polarity in the middle that you just can't get on a Tele, even in that middle position. Anyhow, I digress. This is a Teisco that I picked up after I sold everything, all my favorite stuff, to pay for all that fun stuff. I've always loved a semi-hollow. Now, I thought this was a semi-hollow from off Reverb. I bought it from a shop that had a bunch of these funky kind of 60s guitars, and this is a Teisco. Now, it was branded Pickwick on the headstock. Look at the headstock. I took off the branding. I'm going to show you. It was this cheap metal plate that I saw on the ad, okay, and I'm like, ooh, I could pull that off, a little goo gone, and I'll have a clean headstock, and it's labeled Pickwick. Now, I love that the headstock is bursted and the neck is bursted. The back has a nice burst. Now, this is a 60's. It's got some cracks. Now, the shop, the reverb shop that sold it to me advertised it as a semi-hollow. Now, when I got it, it's a Hollowbody. Now, the all-wood bridge should have tipped me off, maybe. I have already replaced the pickups in this, and I'm going to get into that story. I'm going to show you the original pickups. What I also did, this had a white truss rod cover on it, really bright white, that did not match the aged knobs, okay? And the knobs were funky. I had a couple extra fender knobs I put on there. But I was able to pull that Pickwick logo off, and this has such a similar, pardon my scratching my nose, headstock shape to a Gibson. You know, it really does. It's not quite lawsuit era, I would say, but the nut on this is pretty good. So what I've done, I pulled off that Pickwick, I replaced the truss rod cover, and I replaced the pickups and one of the knobs, okay? Now, I didn't realize, like I said, that this thing was a fully hollow body, because they advertised it as a semi-hollow, and it's okay that it ended up being a full hollow body. Although I wanted a semi-hollow. Probably the best guitar I've ever played was a good friend of mine had a Gibson Es335, a 60's. I don't know what exact year it had, the trapeze tailpiece. He had one of the pickups replaced, so even though it was a 335, it looked kind of Jimmy Page-ish, but it was an old pickup that had been replaced. It had one of the originals, and just the action and the play and the sound on this through. He had like a silver face concert reverb. I don't think we were using any pedals, if anything, a Boss DS1. But that thing was one of the best guitars, if not the greatest playing guitar I've ever played. Now, I had a Washburn, forgive me, an Ibanez Art Core with the violin sunburst, and I bought that at Guitar Center in Oxnard, and I had my motorcycle, and I rode it back. I had no case, but I strapped it, bungee strapped it to the back of my bike seat, and the neck was sticking out the back. I had it all nice and padded though, and so I just had it bungeed over, and I drove back to Santa Barbara with that guitar on the back of my Kawasaki ZRX 1200R, and along the 101 North, it was just, I know people were tripping on me driving past me on the highway, but I was stoked, and that was a good, for a cheap, you know, I think it was Chinese or Indonesian. That might have been Indonesian, but it was still pretty good. I ended up throwing, I had at the time a Gibson 490R rhythm bridge pickup that was uncovered. It was just the black coils, and I threw that in the bridge, and it really made a difference on that guitar. But I've always loved a semi-hollow, and you know, of course, a Gibson like that is just so far out of my range. I've really pared down. I don't even have any American-made guitars anymore. I've got my Mexican Jimmy Vaughn Strat, which is my #1 now, and I love it. I've got my Japanese Epiphone barred acoustic, which I've been getting back into playing some acoustic recently, and I've got my Japanese Fender Jazzmaster here in the Blue Flower. I've got my Mexican P-Bass up there. That's all I have left, folks. And I'm happy with that. There might be some changes coming soon if I sell a couple things. I'm thinking I'm working, the clock's ticking, the tumblers are working up here. You know, it's a joyous thing. I just watched Joe Bonamassa's Nerdville East, and he's inspiring because I don't have the bucks like him, but I keep a small collection, and I can keep doing stuff with that. I can keep maybe selling this to buy that, and you know, it's fun, guys. There's nothing wrong with us being gear lovers, boys and girls. And I know there's some of you women who are on this vibe too out there, probably Mary Spender. You know, there's some chicks I follow on Insta, some pretty killer, Worcester, Farian, I'm sorry if I pronounced your name wrong. Some other cool chicks that are on the Inst So anyway, let's get back into this build. So guys, this was what the original pickups looked like. They were white. Okay, I pulled both of them out. Okay, first I left the neck one in and I put the TV Jones. Okay, I threw this in the neck. I've always loved the look and the sound of a TV Jones. So I threw this bad boy. It's just the classic Filtertron. Yep, the classic bridge. I said neck, I think, but I threw this in the bridge, guys. Just the classic. And it's beautiful. I love it. We're going to crank it up a little. And then in the neck, what we've got here, I left the original for a minute in the neck. But what's in here now, guys, is different. And I've had this pickup in 3 guitars now. This is the 3rd. And this, folks, is a Seymour Duncan parallel axis single coil stack. Okay, and I had it first in my first electric guitar in the neck position, which was an Ibanez Roadstar 2. There's some pictures of it. I loved that guitar. It was white. The shape of the bouts totally matched my Rickenbacker 2002, my 70s. It was that same color white. Oh man, when they were sitting together, loved that combo, you guys. It was a beautiful thing back in the early 90s. But this Seymour Duncan, okay, was in that first. And then it was in the Telly that I had recently that I sold. Also my Mexican Telly. It was a beautiful Telly. Not the 52 reissue. I never messed with the pickups in that. I did do the 3-way switch conversion though on that. But now this thing has never sounded so good as in this guitar. That Seymour Duncan. Now what happened, guys, when I bought this, I ordered this P90 because I've never had a P90. Now all my guitars are single coil. The Jazzmaster and the Strat are single coil, and I'm like, I need a guitar really that has a humbucker, and then if I threw a P90 in it, I'd be covering pretty much all my pickup bases for the most part, guys. Now, I ordered this from Russia. It was pretty cheap. It was in the 30 some odd dollar range. It's an Alnico 2 magnet one. It's not a hum canceling or, you know, a quiet. It's not a noiseless P90, so it's going to be noisy probably. It was on the less expensive side. It's cool though that it came with this, you know, cream colored pickup surround, which I won't use. I'm probably going to sell that pickup actually. It's still got the plastic over it, as I don't think I'm going to put it in here now. I'll tell you why. Because of the look. Now, what I did when I put this Seymour Duncan in, I'm using the original chrome that was around the original pickups. Now look at this, guys. This is the original pickup. I showed you the one. I had taken it out of this surround, and it's got a brass plate on the back, okay? And it just clips in. I can probably pop this one out. I need a little tool. I can use the pick here just to show you guys. There, it pops out really easily. And just like the other one, the magnet just came right off as I popped it out, guys. Look at that. Okay, now what I did, look at this. Oh, it's falling apart. That's some paper around the bobbin. Okay, what I did, I crammed that Seymour Duncan into this surround, okay? And I actually pulled the other pickup off the brass plate, okay? And I put the Seymour Duncan, the bottom of that Seymour Duncan in this brass plate, okay, that this other pickup sits in. I pulled that out, and I threw that Seymour Duncan in there, okay? You can see that, what's going on. And it was a bit of work to do that, but I managed to get it on that bottom brass plate here to lock in to it, so it held it there, and I managed to get this cover back on and back around it. Now this, I believe, is a chrome, very thin chrome-plated plastic. It's hard to tell what this material is. It's very thin. There's some wear. Maybe someone out there knows what it is better than I do. So, that's what I did, folks. I've got, so far, the work into it is the TV Jones Classic Filtertron in the bridge. That's Seymour Duncan, stacked rails. Okay, is that what that sucker's called? Again, I always forget the name of this thing, guys. The parallel axis single coil stack. The Seymour Duncan. Never sounded as good as it has in this. Now, what I also did when I wired that in, I pulled this off, which is pretty cool. You can pull this off, unscrew that to get in there and work on it. Otherwise, like Gibson's, you know, you've only got the holes for the knobs on the top. It's a lot harder. You got to pull the pickup out, fish through. There's some ways to do it. Good videos out there on that. You can see the cracking. It's not horrible, and it actually adds to the patina and the vibe of this guitar. It's nothing structural. This thing is actually pretty structurally sound. Bolt-on neck, Japan. It's a baseball bat of a neck, though, I got to tell you guys. However, it's thin. Okay, it's a thin neck. It reminds me of my Takamine. I had a 93 Takamine acoustic for many years, which I played in college and in the jazz band in college just to be tough and play my cutaway acoustic instead of electric. But this thing is also a bit of a fretless wonder. It's hard to bend on it. These frets, guys, are really... They're not worn, but they've been leveled and crowned, I would say, maybe more than once. And they're very flat. It's got that fretless wonder vibe to it, okay? Now what I did, though, when I put these pickups in, guys, I took some wine corks that I had from some red wine, and I wedged them in here. I think I've got 3 of them in here to stop the feedback a little bit. Now, I love that it feeds back, though. That's one thing I love. People don't like that about semi-hollows or a Hollowbody, that it feeds back so much. I use low wattage tube amps in my studio here, and I can really control this feedback. And I'm going to try to do some of that. I'd have to turn my back to really get into the vibe because working with that. So I'll see what I can do to get you a little of that controlled feedback, guys. But this thing sounds pretty good. It's got the dime-sized pots in there. They sound fine. They're not scratchy, but the throw on them is very short. It's like they're engaged or they're not. There's some weird stuff going on with the switching, guys. It's like a phantom switching, and it says microphone and on. Now, those original pickups were so microphonic, I could just talk into this thing, which I still can do a little bit, I think. Hello? You could still hear out of the amps a little something when I got the mojo going, but these are not really microphonic pickups, so test, check. These are good pickups, guys. So it sounded very banjo-y before I put the wine corks in, and given that I'm a worshiper, and I do worship music a lot, I think it's really cool that I ended up using the wine corks. It wasn't planned. It's what I had. I see you can use foam. I did some research afterwards, which I may put a little foam in here still, but I like where it's at right now, and I just had a good vibe on it today, and that's part of why I was doing the review today, because I was really digging this. So, what else can I tell you? The dime-sized pots, I may change those out. I may change out this bridge. It's so comfortable. I wouldn't change the whole bridge. I would just change the saddle for a metal one that's kind of ARB 1 style. Okay, and that would work on this. So, I may do that. I like that it's got the trapeze tailpiece as opposed to any of the funky whammies that came on these kind of guitars. Now, again, this was labeled Pickwick, but my research shows this is Teisco, and they were branded with many names. Now, I don't know if these were made, this is a 60's guitar. I don't know if they were made in the Fujigen plant or not. Someone could comment if you know and let me know. They were labeled many other names. I have a little list here. Other than Teisco, they were labeled Decca, Commodore, Araya, Norma, Kauai, Conrad, and as this one was, Pickwick. I hadn't seen another Pickwick Some of these have weird, you know, they're similar, but they're all kind of a little different. So I just think it's pretty cool. Teisco has made a comeback lately with their effects line. They have some pretty neat stuff in there. And someone is at my door, so let me put this video on hold for a minute. Okay, folks, I'm back. Now, where was I with this thing? All right. That was a buddy of mine that wanted to park his rig here while he went fishing at the pond by my house. So I said, yeah, son, go with it. I can't go with you because I'm on my vibe here working on this video. All right, guys, so what do we got going with this? Okay, you got two switches for the pickups. It says mic 1 and mic 2. And on. We got 2 volume and a tone, and we got gremlins and fairy dust and unicorn horns and some weird stuff going on up in there, folks. We've got a nice side mount jack. It seems solid. Everything is solid. We got the wood bridge that I went over that may be changed to a ARB1 style. Okay, we'll see. I like the feel and the comfortability of this, though. That is a floating bridge, though. It just floats on the top. And so that's how you intonate, by pulling that bridge backward and forward till you get your intonation. Now this thing sounds pretty good unplugged. The neck is narrow, but baseball bat-like. Okay. And it sounds pretty good. It sounds less banjo-like since I put the wine corks in it. Okay. And again, since I'm a worshiper, it was pretty cool because then as the guitar sits over time, that wine is going to get into the wood and it's going to bless this guitar. That's right, folks. With the sacrament. All right, so let me run through some tones. We've got the dime size pots with the weird throw. Like I said, all I've done is change these pickups. I did use a Dremel to route this out, okay? The original pickup surround, because they're bigger than your normal Gibson style or Gretsch style, and so I had to do some funky modification to the pickup. Also just to the mounts of the pickup, but it worked out great. Again, I used that original on that Seymour Duncan, and it looks great, and that's part of why that I'm not going to put this P90 in the neck, even though I'm still tempted, because it's going to look really funky. It's going to be bigger, and I would have to route out almost that whole thing. I would be able to leave a little bit of the bottom and top on this surround, but not as much as on this TV Jones pickup because it's wider or taller. So anyway, let me run through some tones for you guys on this, okay? What else can I tell you? Fretless Wonder, I think I mentioned that. You can't bend a whole lot on this. I'm gonna maybe remedy that. I'm not sure how much more I'm gonna do to this, guys. The tuners are good. They actually work decent, especially since there's no tremolo. They're the open gear tuners in back, the inline, 3 on a side, and they're decent. So I'm going to run through some tones for you guys and pickup combinations. Here we've got the neck pickup. Pickup. pickups. Alright guys, hope you enjoyed that little review and the quick build that I'm doing on this vintage Teisco 60s baby. It's definitely not your super high-end Japanese, but I didn't want to buy one of those Chinese or Indonesian semi-hollows. This is way cooler, way more unique, and I'm making it my own, guys. If you guys have any suggestions, leave them in the comments, and any information I don't have on these 60s Teisco branded guitars, I would love to hear it, guys. Okay, hope you have a great day. Thanks for tuning in. If you dug it, hit like and subscribe and that bell icon for notifications. And peace out, folks. Bye-bye.